welcome back to my channel for another episode of Lipstick Therapy. Alright, so today's lipstick is another one by Milani, and this is from their Bold Matte collection. This is 04 I Am Smart, and as you can see, it shows up pretty bright on my lip, but just line it in some brown, tone it all the way down. You don't want the powder lip look. That ain't cute whatsoever. So yeah, it looks real nice. Once again, I love Milani shades for the chocolate girls, even pinks like this. So very good job, Milani. Okay, done with that. On today's episode, I want to introduce another sub segment, story time.
It's mother effing story time.
I have a whole lot of interesting stories to tell, and why not tell them here on my YouTube platform? So, the first story I want to tell is I was a Jehovah's Witness. First thing I want to talk about is the fact that I was not born into the religion. My mom was, my grandmother discovered it in her youth. But my mom never really practiced it when we were little. My mother never really included religion in our upbringing. We never talked about God. There was no discussions about God in the house. There was no Bible in the house. We didn't pray, like none of that. I can remember a handful of times we went to church with her friend, and we went to the Kingdom Hall maybe once or twice. But there was no discussions about religion or spirituality or God whatsoever. But I do remember being very interested in spiritual things at a very young age. I'm a Pisces, so that's not shocking. I do remember as a child, like, making me and my sister pray before we went to sleep at night. I had a lot of curiosity about who God was, who was Jesus, all that stuff. I was a nerdy kid, I like to read books and study like the dictionary and stuff like that. And I wasn't very social. I was a very introverted child. So how did I get involved in it? Well, I was at a stage in my life where I had just got out of this crazy, like, abusive relationship with this Korean dude, and I moved back here to Cleveland. I was in Michigan, and I reconnected with an ex-boyfriend, and we ended up living together. I just hit a wall. I just didn't know what else to do. I was just like, I don't have any more plans left, and I don't really know what else I'm supposed to be doing. And there was so many questions I had, and I wanted answers to. And Jehovah's Witnesses always seem to have some kind of an answer, and they use the Bible a lot of times to explain their point of view. So I said, okay, I'm gonna, start my study. So I studied with them, and I told them, look, I'm not trying to get baptized. I just want some answers to some questions I've been having for a long time. I had like the same questions everybody had, like, what's the purpose of life, and what happens when we die, and like, is this it? Like, is there such thing as heaven or hell? And is the devil real? Who really is Jesus? Like, I had a lot of these really common questions a lot of people had. So I wanted answers, and they gave me these answers from the Bible. And I learned so much, and I was so appreciative of what I learned that I got baptized. What happened after I got baptized? Well, what really was my experience as a Jehovah's Witness? I would say, for the most part, it wasn't bad. It's just, you have to be somebody who does not mind submitting all the time and being viewed as like this very boring, dull, square person who happily lives a very boring, dull life of studying and preaching, because you really feel that that's what pleases God. The regimen of a Jehovah's Witness is strict. There's a lot of studying, a lot of praying, and going to meetings multiple times a week. Twice a week. And the other times you're there, you're either, helping out, cleaning the hall, or you are meeting for the ministry. The ministry is the cornerstone of the whole organization. If you don't want to preach, then you can't be a Jehovah's Witness. That's what Jehovah's Witnesses are known for, their preaching work. And it's worldwide, and the organization is worldwide. They have like 8.5 million members. The entire organization is ran by this group of men called the governing body. They determine the standards with which Jehovah's Witnesses live by, and the material that they read, and the material that they place when they're in the ministry, and the principles and rules in which Jehovah's Witnesses have to abide by in order to be in the organization. The goal of every Jehovah's Witness is to just try to preach as much as possible and bring as many people into the organization as possible, because their firm belief is that one day the apocalypse will come and the great tribulation will come and God will wipe out everyone who's destroying the earth, and only those who are in the organization will survive. They have a whole lot of beliefs that are very controversial. Like, for instance, they believe that only 144,000 people and souls that have ever lived are going to heaven, and everyone else is going to be resurrected here on earth, because the earth was created for human beings and the heavens were created for the angels. You can kind of understand where they come from when they teach a lot of the things that they teach. And it's not really that I don't believe in these things anymore. It's just that things have happened that have changed the way that I feel about it. There's lots of false statements made against Jehovah's Witnesses. I'm not against bashing religion, and just because I was in it and I am no longer in it doesn't mean that I think that the religion should be disrespected. I don't disrespect anybody's conviction, especially spiritual conviction. I am in no position to tell you how you should feel about a higher power. So that's not what this video is about. So how did I end up out of the religion? So basically, the reason why I left the religion was because of my marriage. Now, my marriage is another whole video as well, and it's a juicy one, baby. But basically, the religion got very involved in my marriage. The people in the congregation had a lot to say about it. The older men in the congregation counseled me and my husband for a year, and nothing changed. His behavior just went from bad to worse, because he was basically being told that, things were not his fault, that it was my job as the wife to be the mature one, and that I had to learn how to be the bigger person, and I had to learn how to, be better than him. He was from Nigeria. So a lot of the counseling was about how I should learn how to tolerate the differences between the two of us culturally. I feel like at the end of every meeting, it was very unproductive, because these are just men that know the Bible. They can't really tell you like the dynamics behind why the two of you are clashing. Like, yes, we know Bible principles and all that, but it's some psychology behind this, and I think that's the flaw in like just getting religious counseling. You need counseling from professionals, like people who understand the psychology behind relationships and why people act the way they do. Just generally the way I was treated, especially toward the end of the marriage, was just horrible. When I got separated, I put my husband out the house, and immediately after that I stopped talking to everybody. I stopped talking to everybody because I felt like if I talk at this time, then the he say, she say stuff is going to include my name. But if I'm not talking to anyone, nobody can say I said anything. I deliberately stayed quiet for a reason. It was a strategy. I wanted to see how much gunk was still going to come up, even though I wasn't saying anything. And sure enough, a lot of nonsense started to bubble up on the surface. And I found out that, my husband was pulling strings and he was getting allies and closing ranks against me. And he got my mom to turn on me. All of these people that had known me for 5 years was doubting my story. And I didn't understand what he could have said to them to make them completely distrust me. He was the one that they had just met. Nobody knew him. He just literally came out of nowhere. And everybody believed him. Everybody believed everything that he said about me. He just twisted things up and he lied, and he's so good at it because he's a con artist. I don't want to admit it, but I was got. I was had. The man was from Nigeria. He wanted a better life. So there you have it. Well, we make our own decisions, and there's consequences behind them. And the consequences are heavy. That's all I can say. Aftermath. Well, after the separation, I got divorced. I got disfellowshipped. What happens really when you get disfellowshipped? Everybody has their own idea what they think happens when you get disfellowshipped if they're not Jehovah's Witness. I'm the one that determined that I didn't want it anymore. I didn't show any remorse for what I had done, which I'll talk about later. I didn't care. I did not care. I just wanted out of it. So I got out. My general feelings about being a Jehovah's Witness was it served a purpose when it did. I learned a whole lot. There was a lot of consequences from being a Jehovah's Witness. I wasn't able to handle the demand of it. I was depressed. I developed a lot of mental health problems and health problems in general. I was depressed. I was anxious. I had panic attacks. I was in psych ward twice one year from breakdowns, just from the demand of being a Jehovah's Witness. It was too much on me. And I struggle to this day after leaving that religion. The medications I was on when I had the mental health problems still affect me to this day. I have these little jerks, jumping of the body every now and then. That will never go away. Damage to the brain. And I'm paranoid. I'm paranoid about everything. I don't really have any friends. Not any close friends, no. I don't watch TV. I hardly listen to the radio. I don't know the music today. Half of these artists, I'm like, who is that? I never heard that. Like, I was out of the music scene for almost 6 years. I feel like I'm catching up with the world. And I'm very, very hard on myself and the people around me. My standards are much more strict now. I'm very hard on myself. And it's very hard for me to trust my instincts and make decisions. It's been a year since I've been out of it, and you don't just walk away from it. And the biggest assault is just prayer. I don't know how to do it anymore. I don't feel comfortable praying anymore, because it's like when I close my eyes, who am I praying to? I've been taught that Jehovah is God's name, but I can't bring myself to say his name if I know that I got kicked out of his organization and they believe that I am now in bad standing with God, and that mentality is still in my head. So there's lots of consequences to the whole thing after you leave. One thing that I really want to do, and I would be eternally grateful for if I'm able to do it, is start a non-profit organization for people who are leaving religions and trying to transition back into the real world. It is a transition, and a big one. A lot of these people leave and they lose their entire support system. They lose their foundation. They lose family they were closest to. They lose friends. Like, everybody just drops off from them. And they go back into the world. And if they give the world up for that religion, the world's like, I don't want you anymore. And then all these things they were taught about the world still sticks with them. And they don't trust anybody. And they're paranoid. And it's just really no way to live. And they get desperate. And that's why some of them go back to the religion, because it's all they know. But what if they knew that they can go to a safe place, a safe haven, where they can get all the resources they need? They can get housing, they can get education. Some of them just got basic education. They can get access to like a vocational college and just take up a trade, get certified in something so they can take care of themselves adequately, especially if they have families and their moms and they feel stuck because the religion helps them with their family and their children. And they can get counseling and therapy and find other ways besides religion to cope with things in life that they just can't handle, and that they can kind of reintroduce to themselves what spirituality actually means to them. They can define it for themselves and not live in this way that make them feel guilty for not following certain strict rules in a religion. Because your spirituality is about your personal relationship with God. It's not about putting a face on for a community of people. I've always been against organized religion, and now I really am now, even more so. Your personal relationship with God is first. And I realize my personal relationship with God is still there, but I am still affected. And so it's really hard for me to go back into that part of my life again. I'm coasting right now, and I'm just trying to take my time and fill out what I believe. Because right now, I really don't know. So I hope that you all enjoyed this story time. It was easier to talk about than I thought, and I'm glad that I talked about it because it's been a long time. And if you all have any questions about like the general beliefs of Jehovah's Witnesses or any other thing, I'm pretty sure I'm going to make some more videos about it, about the marriage and all those other things, like why I got disfellowshipped and all that, in a separate video. Until then, I will see you on the next episode. Peace, lovelies.